Hi guys, it's Kat. Today, I'm going to show you how I made this miniature typewriter. I've shown you how to build a miniature typewriter by hand before using very simple craft supplies such as popsicle sticks and toothpicks. That was so much fun, but it was also many years ago. I've learned a lot since then and have also gotten cooler tools, so I felt it was time to make an updated version. This version is more detailed and also much more realistic. I'll also show you how to improve the handmade version we created years ago to get a similar look as the one that we're designing today. Before we dive into the tutorial, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, June's Journey. This is a hidden object mystery game set in my favorite time period, the 1920s. There's a captivating murder mystery story that unfolds as the protagonist, June Parker, works to solve her sister Claire's murder. You start at the mansion where her sister lived and explore the exterior and interior rooms for clues. You also meet different characters, including June's now orphan niece, Virginia. The dialogue with different characters in the game help lead you through the storyline. The visuals of this game are beautiful. They're so colorful and really exemplify the glamour of this era. There is an incredible amount of detail in every scene, and the more you look, the more you'll see. You'll be rewarded for your attention to detail. I love finding the little hidden clues throughout each scene and figuring out which ones will help us solve our mystery. The best part of the game for me is the storytelling. I found myself invested in finding out what really happened and what secrets everyone was hiding. You'll also be able to improve the mansion, get surprise gifts, and increase your energy. The island also has so many interesting locations you can visit as you increase your level in the game. When I've had a long day, I love being able to open up June's Journey and getting lost in this rich world of mystery, romance, and intrigue. To download this free game and start playing today, visit the link in the description. This office scene from the game is actually what inspired me to create the typewriter we're making today. Again, if you're making this by hand, check out my tutorial linked here on how to build it with ordinary supplies. I'll show you how to improve that version later in this video. To model this, I'm using Tinkercad. I first put down a red cube and flatten it to a thin square. Then make a copy of it. We need to shorten the length and raise the height of the second square. Place this at the back edge. Then I take an invisible cube and place it at the front because this is where the keyboard will be. Combine the shapes to turn that invisible shape into a cut. Then I grab an invisible cylinder, rotate it so it's horizontal, and place it on the top of the back area to make a cut. This is where the paper roller will be. Next, I take another invisible rectangle and rotate it just a bit so it's on a slant. Place that at the front area behind the keyboard. This just creates a sloped wall here. Now for the fun details. Take this green triangular prism and turn it on its back. Place this at the top center of the typewriter right in front of the paper roll area. Turn the green shape invisible and use it to cut out this area. Here I'm adding some height to this back wall with another stretched out cube. Now it's time for the most important part of this model, the keyboard itself. For the keys, I'll be using orange cylinders. Take one and shrink it down. Place that in this keyboard area. Make a copy of this. Make it wider but shorter to create a little keycap. Make another copy of the orange cylinder and shrink it down just a bit. Put this on top of the keycap and combine the shapes to make a little cavity. Before we make a bunch of copies of this shape, let's first make a spacebar. I first use an invisible cube to cut an area on the typewriter. For the spacebar itself, I shrink down another red cube and turn it white so you can see it a bit better. We just need a long, thin rectangle. Now just make copies of the tiny letter keys. Make copies of that row and fill out this area. I make the back row a bit taller than the front ones for a more realistic look. I then grab another red cube, shrink it to a thinner rectangle, and place it on the side wall. Slant it at an angle and cut away the excess material. Make a copy of it for the other side. We're down to our final details. Grab an orange cylinder and place it in the back area that we cut out. Then I add a few more cylinders on both sides of it for the look of knobs. This is optional, but I also added a few thin cylinders for the rod that holds the paper down when a typewriter is being used. These tiny details aren't necessary, but they add so much to the final model. You can add as many or as few details to these rods as you like. Lastly, I add a rectangle and a half circle to close up this area behind the triangular area that we cut. Make a copy of the red rectangle, thin it out, rotate the rectangle, and put it to one side of the interior triangle. And add a series of them inside this triangle. I rotate each one a little bit just to fan them out inside this area. That's it for the model. Here's a look at this model all complete. Although this piece is quite detailed, it is possible to print in filament. And here is how it looks printed in black filaments. And here is a version that I printed in white resin. Resin will always look better for detailed designs like this, but the filament version is also still incredible. Before we paint this, let me show you how to improve the handmade version that we talked about. To make our simple design from years ago more realistic, I first cut a thin strip of paper and fold it back and forth in a zigzag pattern. Glue one side to a tiny rectangle of paper. Then cut the other end to fan out the little strips. You can paint it or leave it as is. Then glue it underneath the triangular area. You can also add a piece of wire across the front of the paper to match our modeled version. I just bend a short length of wire and glue it on. These additional little details already add so much to this simple design. Now to paint the model that we created today. We're going for a vintage look, so the first thing I do is paint all the crevices black. I also use black paint on the details that we'll be making silver later, like the metal rods. Then I dab white paint on all the keys so they stand out against the black. The white is just an undercoat as we'll be making these silver. Here I'm using metallic silver acrylic paint for those tiny details. That includes all the keycaps and the metal rods on the paper holder. Lastly, I use this metallic copper acrylic paint to paint all the exterior sides. You can also choose to paint it bright colors if that suits your taste better. I've shown you how to add little letters to these keys in my handmade version. You can follow those steps for this keyboard, but I chose to leave it off. Lastly, print out some words on a piece of paper and cut it out. Stick that in your typewriter, and this project is all done. I love recreating minis in the past with new tools and techniques. As always, if you like this model but don't want to redesign it, you can always get the model from my Etsy shop. I have this typewriter and a lot of other miniatures there as well. I hope you enjoyed this video and are inspired to create something today. I'll see you next time. Bye. As a reminder, don't forget to check out June's Journey. Download the game using the link in the description box below and have fun.